think it's so important for people to remember that they're the creators of their lives instead of the victim of their lives, right? So the victim is saying, I'm feeling this way because that person or that circumstance, or I don't have any money, is causing me to feel this way. This is my relationship with money. What that really means is I'm using my lack to reaffirm my dependency, my addiction, my conditioning. That's my relationship with money, is that I put my attention on money because I don't have it. So the relationship with money is, of course, built on lack. And so when they don't have it, they feel bad. And what they're really saying is, my outer environment, my reality is actually controlling the way I feel and the way I think. So, Louis, why are you in a good mood today? Things are going good. Why are you in a bad mood? Things are going bad today. So this unconscious program, victimization, is saying that we're allowing our environment to influence the way we feel and the way we think. Isn't that what victimization is? And the stronger the emotion we have to our lack, the more we put our attention on the fact that we don't have it, right?
Yeah.
So then the person has forgotten that they're creating reality, because what they're creating is lack. And they're creating more of it. And they try harder, and they force harder, and they control more.
And they're more exhausted, and their body's tired.
And they're breaking down, right. So the experiment then is, let's try it another way. Let's create from the field instead of from matter. Get a coherent heart, get a coherent brain, relax in the heart, and energy moves right into the brain. We've measured this 1,000 times. And all of a sudden, the person moves into these beautiful, elegant brainwave states where they're super creative, right? So the longer you're conscious of that energy, the more you draw that future to you.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know you've got something more inside you. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and learn the mindset shifts you can make to get what you want. Enjoy.
What does the synchronicity mean? It means whatever you're doing inside of you is producing that effect outside of you. Pay attention to what you did.
Keep doing
and do
more
it again.
Yeah.
So generate a little bit more abundance. Just do it for an experiment. Now, when the synchronicity happens, do you think you feel suffering, or do you think you feel a little excitement? You feel inspired, right? So then that synchronicity is saying, use this energy, use this feeling. It should be easier for you to feel this now, and go back and do it again. Keep the experiment going. Then here comes the promotion, here comes the email, here comes the person you meet at the right time, right? Whoa, we have something happening here, and then that becomes the momentum, right? So then we generate abundance. That's how we do it. And the relationship...
It doesn't just happen by accident, we generate it.
We generate abundance, right? So then if you have an hour meditation where you're tuning into your abundant future, but then you're spending the other 15 hours a day in lack, don't expect anything to change. You defaulted. You're back to the old energy. And if you say it's that person or that circumstance or that bank account, I'm going to say you're back to the unconscious program of being a victim, right? So then let's go a step further. If your personality creates your personal reality, and it does, and your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel, then the present personality who's listening to this podcast has created the present personal reality called their life. Nothing big there. Which means if you want to change your personal reality, you're going to have to change your personality.
Right.
Nothing changes in your life until you change.
Shift number 2 is dream with the lid off with Mel Robbins.
Give yourself permission to dream with the lid off. This is really important. And the reason why this is important is because I guarantee you that right now you are not even allowing yourself to fully dream or think about or set goals that are truly aligned with what you deeply want in your heart. That you aren't even able to manifest properly because you're not even honest with yourself about what you actually want. This is a really common thing, because you're allowing your self-doubt, you are allowing your fears, your anxiety, your insecurity, you're allowing where you are to dictate and limit where you want to go. And so step 1, super important. You must allow yourself, give yourself permission to start dreaming with the lid off. Now, the scientific reason why this is so important is because you have a filter in your brain called the reticular activity system. I write about the RAS for short, the reticular activity system, extensively in the High Five Habit. The RAS is a filter in your mind, and you can do simple things that change the structure of that filter. In fact, the filter in your mind, the RAS, is always changing. So one thing that you can do in order to teach yourself how to dream with the lid off is to adopt a simple habit. Every single morning, I do a very simple thing. I write down 5 things that I want. That's it. When I start my day, after I get up when the alarm rings, I make my bed, I pull on my exercise clothes, I set an intention, I high-five myself in the mirror, I then go out into the kitchen, I crack open my high-five journal, and then inside the journal there are prompts that walk me through the steps of visualizing. And the first prompt is dream with the lid off. Set your spirit free. Write down 5 things every morning that you want. And this is important because when you get what you want out of your head and you physically put them on a piece of paper, research shows that you're 42% more likely to achieve those goals simply by writing them down. That's pretty cool. Secondly, your mind is paying attention. And when you take deliberate action and you write down what you want, you are signaling to your brain that you deserve to have these things. You are signaling to your brain that you do want those things. You're not just going to think about them. These are things that matter to you. And that helps train your mind to allow you to let the desires flow through you. Because right now, you're not manifesting properly because you're not even allowing yourself to dream with the lid off. So that's step number 1. You're going to start writing down 5 things that you want every single morning as a way to train your mind to let you dream freely.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Shift number 3 is change your beliefs with John Assaraf.
At the end of your day or week, do you ever find yourself worried or frustrated because no matter how much effort you put in to work, and no matter how hard you work, your financial situation and your financial future may never seem to be improving? You might be finding yourself living paycheck to paycheck right now with not a lot of breathing room, and I would imagine no discretionary income or even time to spend on the little things that really would make your life more enjoyable. Well, what I can share with you is you're not alone. That's number 1. And in most cases, the real problem is not your current circumstances. What the real problem is that most people repeat the same patterns of thought and behaviors over and over again, and that is the cause of what? More of the same results, but they are looking for different results. And so today, I'm going to show you how to break that pattern, break that cycle. Now, you see, when you think of your results are effects. And so the question is, effects of what? And the answer is your results are all effects of what you believe to be true about yourself, what you believe to be true that is possible, and it also comes down to what are your daily habits. Now, if you think about what you believe and if you think about your habits, that is what is causing the effect that you may not like right now. And so a simple, logical thing to do would be to understand that if I could change my beliefs about what was possible and what was possible for me specifically, and I could create more empowering habits, then my result will change. And what I love to focus on, having done an enormous amount of brain research over the last 10 years, is something called your inner game. And your inner game is comprised of, obviously, your beliefs, your attitude, your perceptions, how you see the world, and your inner game is also comprised of what causes you to take action. And so let me share just a little story with you that may help you understand what I mean. About 2 years ago, I was at a seminar. And when I got off the stage, this woman started walking towards me. And I could see she was somewhere in her, 50s, maybe early 60s. She looked nice. She was a vibrant woman. She was walking right towards me. And I saw tears streaming down her eyes. And when she got through the crowd, for a moment I thought that maybe there was something wrong, but she actually had tears of joy in her eyes. And when I met her, her name was Joni Sanderson, and this was in Perth, Australia. And she came up to me, she said, "Thank you so much." And I go, "Well, for what?" She says, "Well, about a year ago, I heard you speak about beliefs and habits and mastering my emotions and really working on my self-worth." And she said to me that she was a caregiver and that she loved helping families who needed extra assistance for their aging parents or for their children who may need some additional help in the home. So she was a wonderful caregiver, but she was living on a widow's pension of about 12,000 Aussie dollars a year. And so she really didn't have enough money to be able to take the care of her grandkids that she wanted to be able to take her children on a vacation. And so I shared with her, "Why do you think that you're only earning $12,000 a year?" And she said, "I don't know." And when I shared with her that she possibly believed that that's what she was worth. And she said to me, "Well, I think I'm worth more." I said, "Well, you might be able to declare that you're worth more, but if at a deeper level of your brain, you have this feeling that maybe you're not smart enough or not good enough or not worthy enough, that is what is going to drive your behavior." And so what I helped Joni do prior to her coming to me and being in gratitude was I helped her recognize that beliefs drive behavior. Beliefs drive emotions. Habits drive behavior. And in order to change your results, living paycheck to paycheck, being stressed out, worrying about your future or even your present circumstances right now, why not focus on working on the neural patterns, the beliefs and habits that are nothing more than patterns in the brain that drive 96 to 98% of your behavior? And so she started to work on what I call a belief and habit modification program. And while she did this, she started to see herself in a different light. She started to feel more confident, more certain, and more empowered. And what I can share with you is she, at that moment, told me that she went from making $12,000 a year as from a widow's pension and living paycheck to paycheck to being able to charge for her services, and she was making $75,000 a year.
Shift number 4 is activate your imagination with Marie Forleo.
There's a prompt in here that I have used so many times in my life and so many times in my business that has transformed everything. In a business context, it's led to like multi-million ideas. And in a life context, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you how many things it's helped me shift. And it all comes back to tapping into that wisdom that I already have in my heart that I wasn't really aware of. So what you're going to need is a journal or just a notebook or a piece of paper. And I want you to give yourself at least 15 to 20 minutes of uninterrupted time with no cell phones around, no things ringing or dinging, no televisions, no nothing. I just need you to put yourself in a place where it can be kind of quiet, where you're really comfortable. Maybe you have a little cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something stronger if that's what you're into, whatever floats your boat. And you're going to use this sentence stem to start to unearth what Ellen might really want to focus on in this next chapter of her life. So the sentence stem goes like this. Wouldn't it be cool if ... So I want you to write down on a paper, wouldn't it be cool if? And then whatever springs up in your mind and your heart, I just want you to write it down. So wouldn't it be cool if I lived in Hawaii. Wouldn't it be cool if I could solve world hunger? Wouldn't it be cool if I had platinum blonde hair? I don't know. I'm just making stuff up off the top of my head. But what this exercise does is it starts activating your imagination. It starts dusting off that ability you have to dream that I suspect may have been put on the back burner for so many years because you've been focused on so many other people, because you're so responsible and you're so loving and you're such a good person. But now, my friend Ellen, now is the time for you to rediscover what's in your heart and what would really be cool for you to focus on in this next chapter. And I promise you, if you play with this prompt, wouldn't it be cool if, and you let yourself dream without editing, without squashing something down because you feel like, oh, that's impossible, that could never happen. No, we don't do that in brainstorming. We let everything down on the page. I promise you, you will start to unearth something that's going to make you go, oh, that feels amazing. Could I really do that? Could I really be that? Could I really pursue that? And you're going to get like little tinglies. Arms will stand, the arm hair will stand up, all that kind of good stuff. But it will only happen if you give yourself this ability to play with this prompt and do it until you can't write anymore.
And shift number 5, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is keep the promises you make to yourself with Ed Milet.
I've been getting asked lately about the struggles people are going through with self-doubt, not believing in themselves, negative thoughts about themselves. And I believe the solution to self-doubt is to build something bigger than that doubt, which is to build our self-confidence. And one thing to know about the fact that you doubt yourself is, one, I struggle with it as well. One of the reasons I've had to go learn to build all these tools for myself is because in my life, my baseball career, my academic career, my business career, my speaking career, I've been riddled with self-doubt. That creeps up all the time in our lives. Am I enough? Am I good enough? You weren't born doubting. You weren't born discouraged. You weren't born thinking negative things about yourself. Those were thoughts that were placed in you and given to you by an external source at some time in your life. It could even be our parents. Don't do that. Be quiet. Sit down. Be a good boy. Be a good girl. Maybe it was criticism you received as a little one that you may not even remember to this day. The process of building self-confidence is actually very easy, believe it or not. Self-confidence is self-trust. Self-confidence is building a reputation with yourself that you keep your word to you, that you keep the promises you make to you. When I meet somebody who has a ton of self-confidence, I don't look at that as somebody with a big ego. There's a difference. Somebody with self-confidence has a reputation with themselves that I do the things I say I'm going to do. That's where self-confidence comes from. When I meet someone who is not self-confident, I know this is someone who has consistently made promises to themselves they've not kept. They've started a diet and done it for a while but not kept it. They've made a commitment and goals to go make a certain amount of money in business, and they started down the road but then they didn't deliver on it long term, to get up at a certain time of the morning and then they don't do it. And so they have a process and a habit in their life more often than not of not keeping the promises they don't make to other people. They don't keep the promises they make to themselves. And so the cool thing is, self-confidence is an internal game. You do not need external accolades, external admiration in order to build self-confidence. You don't need any of those external forces. It's all done internally. You control this. And you control this by beginning today to keep the promises you make to yourself. And you have to stack the deck in your favor. Stack the game so you win. It's not good enough just to keep the promises you make to yourself. You must acknowledge it when you do it to you to give yourself credit to create confidence momentum, is what I call it. So whether that's setting the deck where you're going to get up a little bit earlier, you're going to make a certain amount of phone calls in your business, a certain amount of appointments, you're going to eat a certain amount of calories in your fitness, you're going to spend a certain amount of time with your children or your parents, and you begin to do these things you say you're going to do. You say simple things like, I'm going to lay out my clothes the night before I go to bed every night, before I go to sleep, so when I wake up that decision's made for me. And believe it or not, the fact that you just do something that simple that you then deliver on begins to build confidence. So you say, I'm going to stretch in the morning when I get up, and you do it. All of a sudden, I'm not going to check my phone for 30 minutes. All these habits I teach, when you just begin to do the things you tell yourself you're going to do, you begin to build self-confidence, which is this reputation with yourself. So ask yourself a question right now. What is one thing right now, one promise I can make to myself that I'm going to begin to keep starting this minute? And begin to do it. It could be how often I'm going to pick up a book and read it. but you begin to stack things you commit to do, and then you deliver on them and you acknowledge them to yourself. You're in the process of building self-confidence. Why is that so important? Of all the athletes I coach, when my athletes are performing at their peak level, they're at their highest self-confidence level. In fact, I love when I watch some of the athletes I coach get interviewed and they kind of do this aw shucks, humble routine in their post-game interviews. Yeah, just part of the team, I got a lot, I could have done a lot better today. But inside, I know these people are incredibly self-confident people. Any of you athletes listening to this, you know this. The great athletes you know have incredible amounts of self-confidence. You have to believe in you when it's a battle, when you're a hitter against a pitcher, or when you're a quarterback against a defense, or you're a defenseman in the NHL against their best offensive player, or you're a golfer and you have to make a 9-foot putt to win a tournament, right? You better have self-confidence. In fact, the separator, more often than not at the highest level in sports, is not they're a better shooter or a better putter or throw the ball a little bit faster, because everybody throws hard in the major leagues nowadays, it seems, right? That separates their self-confidence. It's true in being a parent. It's true in being a business person. It's true in every area of our life. The separator at the top levels is self-confidence.
You have no idea what you're capable of. You have no idea. You have no idea the person you could be, the things you could accomplish, the things you can do, the people you can serve. You have no idea. That's why I don't like 10-year goals. 10-year goals. Think about who you used to be 10 years ago. Could that person accurately, with any degree of certainty, predict where you could be right now? No. Like, if you're growing and you're learning and you're improving and you're expanding, you're investing in yourself, there's no way that you know where you're going to be in 1 year, let alone 5 years or 10 years. You have no idea what you're capable of. And so it comes down to questioning everything. To question what you can and can't do. We're told the story growing up of what you should do, and we're told everything, right? You're told when to show up and where to go and what to wear and what to eat and at what age you should get married and what kind of career you should go into, right? We're told we should do all these things. You're told, you're like, who? Nobody ever thought to ask us what we want for our lives. And you may not even know, and that's okay. Like, you may know where you want to go next, but you may not ultimately know the final destination. It's awesome. I think if you know the final destination, you're thinking small. Apart from having a mission, the mission, the purpose. Why do you do what you do? I want to solve the world's biggest problem. People don't believe in themselves enough. That's what I'm chasing down every day. Do I know where I'm going to be in a year? Nope. Am I still making videos? Probably, but who knows? Like, question everything. I want people to believe in themselves more. What's the best way to do that? Right now, it's through YouTube. But I think a lot of times people have too certain of a plan, and then they end up playing small, because there's nothing wrong with having goals and plans, but sometimes you need to jump off that. If you have a 10-year goal, quite often you need to jump off that goal 2 years in, because something better has come along that actually better serves who you are right now, because the goal you set was for who you used to be. Have you felt that? And so I'm here at Genius Network, and this is a group of super successful entrepreneurs that meets once a month in masterminds and talk about their business, and pay a lot of money to be a part of something like this. And every time I'm around people who are having a high degree of success, I always try to have them pick me apart. So when we do, there's an exercise called hot seats, where you go around on a table and you basically share what you think your biggest problem is. And whenever it gets to my turn, I just want people to ask me questions, because your biggest problem is you don't know what your biggest problem is. Right? Your biggest problem is you don't know what your biggest problem is. If you knew what your biggest problem was, you can go and solve it. For entrepreneurs, for ambitious people, you've got goals. It's like, you don't know what the real problem is. The problem you think you have is a problem. The problem you think you have, yes, very much is a problem, but there's a deeper problem underneath it that you're missing, that I'm missing. So this is where questioning everything becomes important. My default has become, instead of pretending like I know everything and I know all my problems, that I don't know anything, and ask me questions. And in the process of asking me questions and learning about me, maybe you come up with some insight that I'd never seen before. Everybody has their own way of processing giving advice, So I'm around people here. Everybody here has a 7 or 8 figure or 9 figure business, and people here have sold their businesses for 9 figures. Crazy. Awesome. And so they have their own way of processing things and asking questions and breaking somebody down. So instead of me coming in with the question and having them try to fit into my box, I'd rather fit into theirs. Because in trying to understand how they process things, it'll probably make me stretch and grow and learn. And I'm probably gonna get a better result because they're gonna see something that I don't see. And so in the process of questioning everything, when people can break you down and you're open to it, right? Because we hold on to our identity. Like, no, that's not gonna work for me. You know, even, oh, got a bee. I am allergic to bees. Maybe I should question that. I don't feel like questioning that today, though. Do not want to get stung by a bee. I once got stung by a bee, and only time in my life I've been stung by a bee, and I was on the floor, and my back just swelled up from the bee sting. Anyway, maybe question everything except bee stings. How about that? There's been times when people have given me advice, and it made sense, and it really fit. And sometimes when it didn't, and even if it doesn't make sense, what I'll default in my head to saying is this is either nothing, like the person didn't read me correctly, or it's the whole thing. Think about it. If you're really opposed to somebody's advice or feedback for you, if somebody gives you great advice, like, oh wow, that's really cool, I should go and do that, cool. They met you where you are at and you understand it. But there'll be other times when it doesn't feel right. And it could be that it just wasn't a fit and they're giving you the wrong advice, or you're so blind, and this is what gets me excited, is maybe I'm so blind, maybe I believe my story so much that the thing that you're talking about is actually the whole thing. Like it's all I should care about. Because figuring out how to solve that, because I'm so tied to my own story that I'm not questioning enough. I'm coming back to the B spot, hopefully it's gone. I'm not questioning enough, and figuring that out becomes the whole unlock. So a quick story on this. I did a life coaching session with Gary Vee's life coach, Beth Hendel, and at first I was shocked. I didn't know Gary Vee had a life coach, and so I was very excited to talk to her. And just like I've been explaining in this video, I went through her process. Like, how do you ask questions? What do you want to know about me? I don't want it to be, if this is a coaching session, just treat me as a client. Treat me as somebody who you're going to coach. What do you need to know from my story and how I act? And I'm gonna be as open, as honest as possible. And what it led to was a lot of the stuff she was saying was great, but my single biggest insight and takeaway was this, and I'm practicing this every single day now. The one takeaway that has honestly changed my life. Historically, I've been the person who believes in the plan. So what's my plan to get to the next step? Like, I want to go here, what's my plan? What's my plan? What's my plan? So I have the belief in the plan. And I wake up every day and I just do the plan because I believe in the plan. I'll have some days where I don't believe in the plan anymore. Like, will this plan help get me anywhere? Is this plan still working? Like, it's not working anymore. And that leads to some anxiety for me because I believe in the plan. And when the plan doesn't work, what happens? And so what I'll end up doing is making a new plan. So I have a plan. I believe in a plan until I don't believe in it anymore, causes anxiety, come up with a new plan. You following? So in creating a new plan, then I have certainty in the plan again and I'm fine and I'm rocking and rolling. But there are some days when I can't come up with a new plan. The plan I have, I don't believe in anymore, and I'm racking my brain to come up with a new plan and I can't come up with a new plan. If I'm the kind of person who believes in the plan and then I can't come up with a new plan, that's a really stress-inducing, anxiety-filled place to be. And it doesn't happen that often. But when it does, and I can't come up with a new plan, especially in the moment, well, what I would end up telling myself is, great things happen to me. You know what happened? Great things happen to you. And I would use it as a self-soothing mechanism, as a coping mechanism, because I didn't want to just stay locked in that stress, and it would be a downward spiral. Like, if I believe in the plan and the plan's not working and I can't come up with a new plan, then I don't know what to do with my life. And that would create a downward spiral. I've never gone anywhere close to depression or suicide, but that could lead to some dark places. And so the way that I come out of it is just say, great things will happen to me. Great things happen to me. They always happen to me. Great things happen to me, and I'll figure this out. And that gives me the comfort to move forward into the uncertainty, and then something will come that I will solve it. And what she said was, Gary Vee's life coach was, what you say to yourself when you need that self-soothing of great things happen to you needs to be your default state. So instead of believing in the plan as your default state and only going to great things happen to you when you are at the lowest of your low, flip it to the point where great things happen to you is the default, because that's where you're actually your best self. And I really felt that. I don't know how to do it, but even in questioning how do I do it, I just have to believe that great things happen to me. So a big part of my routine now is I don't know how many times I'll say that to myself, feel that, great things happen to me. I'm gonna put it as my new cell phone background. It's a constant reminder. Even making this video is another reinforcement of it. When people ask me what my goals are, there's been these exercises we've been doing in Genius Network here, and I just keep reminding myself, I don't know, I don't have a 10-year goal. Great things happen to me. It's a constant reminder, and I used to live it before this awareness. I don't know, like how many times would I feel really down and low and anxiety filled that I couldn't come up with a new plan? Maybe half of 1% of the time, like really small amounts. And now I'm probably living in great things happen to me maybe 5% of the time, 10% of the time, which is a huge jump from half of 1%, but it's still not my default mode yet. I'm still a believe in the plan guy. That's my ongoing challenge to myself. That's how I'm questioning. It's the willingness to question what you're doing. Because what you're doing right now has gotten you to where you're at. And if you're happy with where you're at, cool. But if you want more, you want to create more, you want to serve more, you want to bring more, you want to help more, you want more, you want to change, and you have to change. And the change starts with not just questioning everything out there, but question everything in here. Questioning what you believe to be true, questioning who you think you are, questioning for sure what you think you're capable of. Because when you can get to the root of that, amazing things can happen.
You have to really begin to mentally rehearse. Like, so you ask yourself at the end of your day, I do this every day. How'd I do? How'd I do today, bro? How'd you do? Did you do good? Where'd you fall from grace? What was it that caused you to go unconscious for the rest of the day? Like, what was that moment? Now, if you're a student of life, you'll begin to contemplate, well, it was that person that said that thing, then I reacted, or I got this email, or things didn't go my way, and I started feeling angry or frustrated or fearful. The next time that happens, how could I evolve my experience? Now, you may have to search for some answers of the best model to build, or you may actually have a long contemplation and start to go, God, the next time that happens, I think I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to plan my behaviors. And the act of closing your eyes and rehearsing what you're going to do begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like you already did it. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. And if you keep installing that hardware, the hardware will become a software program, which means you'll just start acting like a happy person. Why? There's no magic there. You installed the circuitry. So that's more important than the news.
Right.
It's more important than answering any email or any text. It's more important than talking about your past or some dinner. If you can begin to just think about how you're going to do it differently, that's the building process neurologically already. So now you have to get conscious in order to do that. And it takes some time. It means you got to shut your cell phone off. You got to close your door. You got to take a break from everything out there and begin to practice. And so by experience, then you start noticing, oh, here it comes the frustration, or here comes the fear. And now we've given people the tools to be able to self-regulate, to create brain and heart coherence. And so you see people say, excuse me 1 minute, I just gonna need a minute. They take some breaths, they get back in, they connect to the energy of their future. This is incidental compared to where they're going. So they don't fall from grace. They don't allow their energy to drop. And so, in the beginning, it takes a lot, because it takes a lot of energy and awareness to stay conscious and not go unconscious. But if you're persistent and you're determined and you're sincere, you begin to figure it out. You begin to say, I am not going to give my power away to that person or that circumstance when I can use it to heal or to create a new future. And so people then won't excuse themselves and say, I had a hard day yesterday, I had a fight with my coworker or my ex, and I don't feel like doing the work. Well, that's the time to get back on the horse.
Yeah.
Because it's all of those times that we self-correct. Those are the most valuable moments to us. People who've had profoundly transcendental experiences where we say, got lit up, they connected, and their brain goes into very, very high coherent states and super gamma patterns that are way outside of normal. And they have a transcendental download or connection that's mystical. They look back at their entire life. They don't want to change one thing in their past because it got them to that moment. That's the moment the past no longer exists. Now, by the same means, they look back at their past and they see all those tough moments where they overcame themselves and they fall in love with that person. They don't look at the good meditations or the things that went well. They know that it was those moments that got them to this moment. And I think then that's when they begin to understand that all of the hard work, all the effort in who we become makes, no one can take that away from us. So then once we arrive at that level and we experience whatever the dream is or whatever we create, the next thing is do it until you fully enjoy it. And then when it gets boring or predictable, let's go again. Let's do something else.
Here's the hard truth about getting great. It takes time and dedication. It takes a willingness to accept that you're not yet good enough. It takes the ability to stare at the places that you know that you're weak, to really look at those things and not let it affect your sense of self-esteem and not let it affect your sense of self-worth so that you can still get the momentum going. But you have to understand that in the beginning, we're all terrible. And as Henri Cartier-Bresson said, your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. And so the thing that really makes great art are the people that continue to push and the people that continue to work and face how inadequate they are and really understand that at the end of the day, greatness is a craft. Greatness is a process. Greatness is a habit. Greatness is the little things that you do every day, over time, going out every day, unafraid of whether or not this is one of the 10,000 terrible things that you're going to do. It's being unafraid to make those mistakes. It's being unafraid that you're not yet great. And as Marianne Radmacher said, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. And that's it. If you want to be great, that's what you have to do. You've got to get up again tomorrow. You've got to be willing to face another day. You've got to be willing to accept that you've got to get through the bad ideas before you can get to the good. You've got to understand that you have to start as an apprentice. You have to start as a person going and getting tea, and you have to accept that that's the job that you should be playing, that you should be working for somebody else. You should be looking up to somebody else and seeing what they can teach you, because what you know is that you're there to learn. What you know is that you're there to get through the 10,000 bad photographs that you need to get through to ultimately achieve greatness. And if you make the catastrophic error that so many make, to try to tell the world that you're extraordinary today, to try to get the world to follow you and look up to you and think that you're something today. Because the people that really win are the ones that invest today, the ones that listen today, the ones that spend every ounce of their energy amassing mastery, getting better every day, working their asses off to improve their skill set, to relentlessly look at the things that they're not doing well, to understand that they have to break themselves down and get rid of all of their ego before they can really find greatness. Those are the people that we remember. So if you want to be remembered, if you want to achieve real greatness, you just need to have the courage to show up every day and take another swing, take another photo, try another task, Do something that scares you. And do those little things over and over and over until you win.
I think we're all faced with great opportunities brilliantly disguised as impossible situations. And in order, like for me personally, and after looking through your book and reading a good portion of it, I mean, for me, there's no school of ancient wisdom that you need to go to be initiated. Your life is your initiation if you're paying attention. So we meet challenges in our life from a certain level of mind, right? A certain level of consciousness or unconsciousness. And even Einstein said we have to go to a greater level of consciousness than the consciousness that's created the problem. Well, what is consciousness? Consciousness is awareness. And awareness means possibilities that you haven't thought of before. So we confront problems or challenges in our life. And as a side note, I was having breakfast with a researcher just last week who's studying what happens when we perceive and condition in our environment as a problem, how it weakens the organism. They're measuring this. And when a person sees it as a challenge, how they draw energy, they raise the energy of their body back into order. So if we said, I want to be wealthy or I want to be healthy, well, what you want to be that because you're not it. So the initiation of going from not it here to it here, you're going to have to climb some steps. And there's going to be some blind spots. So you try it out and it doesn't work. Well, that's because there's a part of you that's still in a habit. There's part of you that's still unconscious. Okay, so what is it about myself in that circumstance that I am feeling about that circumstance, and that feeling is causing me to think about it? So you say, oh, it's impossible, they'll never change. I'll hire a hitman, I'll hire the mafia, I'll hire an attorney, I'll have my friend's friend to talk to him, and nothing changes, right? Well, you're not separate from that experience. You're involved in it, and how you think and how you feel broadcasts energy into the field. So your energy is the same every day. And as long as your energy is the same, nothing's going to change in your life either. And nobody changes until they change their energy. So then, what piece of knowledge, what piece of information, what would love do? What would greatness look like? Okay, I don't know. All right, well, certainly somebody in history has faced this problem. Don't get on Facebook and say, does anybody have any answers? Go look it up and study and read and learn. You'll own it. And you'll say, wow, that person that was wealthy, they failed 500 times. Yeah. Well, hell, I had the wrong view of wealth. Okay, then failure's not a thing. I got to overcome failure. Well, yeah. Just climb the step. Yeah. Okay, I'm reacting to that circumstance with the same emotion. That emotion is firing the same thoughts. I'm broadcasting the same energy into the field. If I were facing that circumstance and situation again with that person, that circumstance, what do I learn from that circumstance? How could I do it differently the next time? Find out a solution and rehearse it. Install the circuitry so when you get in the circumstance, you're not going to respond in an automatic habituation. Yeah. Now you're at a greater level of consciousness. Now you're looking at possibilities that you weren't looking at before because you were unconscious. Now, that process of trial and error is so important in the spiritual path. How many times do we have to forget before we remember? And then we remember and we forget again. And it takes constantly remembering until we stop forgetting. And when we get to that point, now we're conscious. Now there's wisdom. And wisdom is the memory of the experience without the emotional charge. Now you're ready for the new adventure. So then people draw conclusions and say, oh, it's that person that ripped me off. It's that person that what? Now you don't create your reality? Oh, you only create your reality when things are good. No, well, somehow you got to tango through this. Somehow your objectivity in not reacting emotionally is going to change the energy of how you address this situation.
When I was small, I was also really undersized. So it's probably one of the reasons I lift weights. I was always every baseball picture, I'm the kid holding the sign in the front, right? So I was small and skinny. They used to tease me Eddie Spaghetti, and I'd get bullied at school, and I never retaliated. So I had that mixed with shyness, mixed with chaos in my home, which many people can relate to. And I got to tell you that the shift for me, sports was good for me because it gave me an outlet. I finally found something that I was pretty good at. I think the biggest shift in our lives, the things that makes us the happiest, is that when somebody helps us identify our natural giftedness. And when I was a little boy, when I got a little bit older, they pointed out my speed. So it wasn't my lack of size, I was fast. I was the fast kid, right? I always wanted to be fast kid, and I got confidence in baseball doing that. When I got into business, they said, you're intense. When someone points out a gift about you that you also kind of intuitively know to be true, they're linked to them. You're intense, you're passionate, you won't get outworked, you're relentless. I went, I am those things. And when someone linked those gifts to me winning, now I believed I could win. That's the other way to change identity, is when someone can link your giftedness to the victory, you'll believe it. Not like you're great, that's general, that's bullshit. Right. But it's something specific. Like for you right now, you wouldn't brag about them. There's a few things you know what, I am good at these things, right? I've always been good at these things, it's natural for me. And when someone links that to you winning, like for you, for example, you're an unbelievable interviewer. You have this general, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room because you probably are most of the time. And so there's a confidence that allows you to be present when you interview me and just listen that's different than anyone who's interviewed me before. And so that's a natural giftedness for you, which is why there's a part of you that kind of knows, you wouldn't say it, but I am pretty good at this. This is a good program. And so the way we change your identity, the way I changed mine, was by getting in touch with what some of my natural gifts were and then using them in my career, using them in my life. That shifted the weight right off of me. Because the weight was, I suck, I'm shy, I'm small, I have a screwed up family. That's the weight, right? The lifting off of the weight is, these are some gifts God gave me, or the universe gave me, or that at least I know I have, and I can spend my life using these gifts. Now I've got hope. Now my identity's changing. Now my life takes a different direction.
So if you take any event that's occurred in the past, if you just merely think of that event that's occurred in the past, chances are you're firing off the neural network of that pattern, right? So you can take the idea of eating your favorite dessert. What do you think is happening in your brain when you pretend you're eating that favorite dessert of yours and your mouth starts to water and you start to feel, oh, that's such a great dessert? That's neurons in your brain firing and the neurochemistry that is associated with that memory firing. Now, let's say that you have a disempowering pattern of being embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed. But instead of just thinking about the pattern and going, oh, I don't like it, as soon as you think about the pattern and it has I'm going to say a disempowering or negative emotion, chances are that means that the stress center in the brain has been activated. That means that your heartbeat's going to go up. That means that your sweat glands are going to be activated. That means you're going to breathe a little bit less deeply. You're going to be more shallowly. And that is the fear or stress response. Now, what if instead of allowing that to continue, you just stopped and you had this intention? I'm going to dissolve the effectiveness or the strength of this pattern. How do you do that? Well, first and foremost, you stop, you sit, and you start with inner size number one that I guide you through in the book. All right. And inner size number one is called Take 6, Calm the Circuits. So you want to move from your stress and react system to your relax and respond system. You have parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, okay, that are triggered within the body. So what happens when you sit quietly and you take 6 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing out through a straw? When you do it 6 times in 10-second rhythmic breaths, and you focus on the air that you're blowing out through your mouth like you're blowing out through a straw, that simple exercise is exercise number 1, take 6, calm the circuits. It actually deactivates the stress, fear, embarrassment, shame, guilt circuit. And in a quiet, relaxed state, that same memory does not have the same power. But if you don't do it in that state, you do it in a tense, stressful state, you're actually reinforcing that pattern versus thinking about bringing up that old memory and doing this repetitively 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times until the neurons really don't fire that strength at that strength level.
The majority of our thoughts and feelings are connected to our sexuality, to our victimization, our guilt, our suffering, our shame, our unworthiness, our self-doubt, or our importance, our control, our fear, our anger, our frustration, our hatred, our judgment. Those are the first 3 hormonal centers in the body. And those first 3 centers have everything to do with survival. And those centers are energy consumers. Orgasm, digestion, stress is a lot of energy that we're drawing from our very vital life force, our resource of light and information, and we're turning it into chemistry, and we're literally robbing the body's energy, right? So then living like that for the short term is okay, because the body can move back to homeostasis, it can restore itself, but when we're overdoing that consistently, then there's no energy for growth and repair, because you're living constantly in survival. So again, you can eat all the right food, you can do all the right things, but if you're living in anxiety and fear and you're viewing your world from the worst case scenario that could possibly happen, because that's what you do in survival, there's no energy for growth and repair. There's no energy for healing. So the majority of our thoughts are signaling certain circuits in the brain that signal another part of the brain, the limbic brain, to make what's called a neuropeptide. Neuropeptides are chemical messengers that signal hormonal centers. So now you're taking thought and you're storing it as energy in these energy centers. And if you're living in survival, why would you open your heart? I mean, it's just not a time to open your heart. I mean, if you're getting chased by T-Rex, it's not a time to meditate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to connect. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to sit down and go within. It's not a time to be vulnerable. It's time to run, fight, or hide. And so,
is that why we're this way? I've never asked you this before. Is this some? I don't think you believe this, but I just want to understand. Is this some sort of genetic disposition that's been passed down to us since we've been chased by T-Rex?
I think so. I think survival has been very adaptive.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're being chased by T-Rex, you don't run up to T-Rex and say, "Oh, cute little dinosaur, let me pet you." That's not adaptive. The fear is adaptive. You run from the unknown. You run from challenges, right? So if you're living in survival, there's better chances of surviving if you run from the unknown. And by the way, when you're living in survival, the infinite potentials in the quantum field, you'll select the worst case scenario in your mind. And you'll begin to emotionally prepare yourself for the worst case scenario, because you have better chances of surviving.
There you go.
If you prepare for the worst, right?
There you
so
go.
people spend their whole life thinking about the worst thing and emotionally embracing it. Well, you take a thought and emotion, or an image and an emotion, you're branding or conditioning your body into what? Anxiety, into fear. So then you keep doing that over and over again, the body becomes the mind of fear. And whether you think you can control it or not, you're going to have a panic attack. And the panic attack is the body saying, you've conditioned me this way. Try as you may with your conscious mind to control it. You programmed it subconsciously. Then you start worrying about the next panic attack, and it's that very anticipation that keeps the person on the hamster wheel,
and robs them of all of this energy as well.
They're absolutely so they don't believe in possibility when they're living in that state, because in survival, it's not a time to create. All the blood flow is going to the hindbrain and away from the forebrain. There's no physiology really for a person to begin to create a new future. So think about it. So then 70% of the time, people in the world are living anticipating the next moment based on their past moment. And so they're laying reality down moment by moment with the next known, the next predictable moment. And so the hormones of stress endorse the senses. Our senses become heightened when we're under stress, and we become materialists. We narrow our focus on the danger.
Yes.
So then you're focusing on matter, you're focusing on the material world, and when you do that, you put all your attention, the arousal of the stress hormones puts all your attention on your body. If you're being chased by T-Rex, you better be paying attention to your body.
I'm in this 3-year journey of trying to conceive, and really for a year and a half, almost 2 years, I was like in the low of it, really feeling like, okay, I'm not good enough. My body isn't working. How can I make this happen? How can I make this happen? Right. And really pushing and controlling and trying to eat things and track my ovulation and all that crap. And then about the fall of 2017, I started to get into more of a surrendered state, and I started practicing the methods that I teach in the book of just really trusting that there was a higher guidance that I'd believed in for my whole life and relying on that. And that's when things started to get really wild and synchronistic. And so around the fall of 2017, I was driving in the countryside where I live most of the time. And this is where I do the majority of my manifesting, is just driving in the car, looking at the foliage, listening to my mantra music. And I feel so awesome when I'm in that position. And I'm just so grateful in the moment. And I'm driving. And I'm like, I feel so awesome and so grateful that I live in this country town and I have all these friends and I don't have any cell service right now. And I'm so psyched about that. And no one's bothering me and I feel good. And then all of a sudden, I felt the presence of a baby in the back seat. And I was like, wow, like deeply moved. Tears started to roll down my face. I felt so moved. And at that point, I heard my intuition say to me, the baby's coming in March. And I was like, and it was so loud. Like, you know, when you hear the voice of your inspiration, you're like, that's it. Okay, I believe. And so I started saying to myself over and over, like, oh my God, March, you know, I have to conceive at this time for the baby to come in March. I saw myself getting a little into it, like too into it and hooked into it. So I said, okay, listen, you know what, universe, I'm going to give this over. And if my baby is indeed coming in March, show me a sign. Show me lilies to let me know that the baby's coming in March. And a week later, I got a letter in the mail from a reader, and it had this angel card in it. And on the back of it was this picture of Archangel Gabriel. And Archangel Gabriel is typically depicted holding lilies. So I was like, yo, this is dope. And on the back, he wrote, I thought that you needed this. And I was like, thank you. Good. So here I am. March is coming. March is happening. And early March rolled around and I wasn't pregnant. So I was like, what the hell? And not only was I devastated once again, another month has gone by, I'm not pregnant, but this time I was like, I thought the universe had my back. Like I was getting signs, like what's up? So I walked into my husband's office and I was just hysterically crying, so upset, so defeated. And my phone was like on the desk, like right here. And all of a sudden my phone started playing a song. And the song was just repeating. And so I go like, you know, when your phone malfunctions, you're like, I'm just going to turn that off. I was like, okay, I'm just going to turn that off. And then I look at the phone and I start listening to the lyrics. And the lyrics are, way go Lily, way go Lily. And the guy keeps repeating, way go Lily. And then I look even further and I look at the name of the song is Way Go Lily. And he just keeps repeating Lily. And I look even further and the album title is I See the Sign.
And where was this playing? What area of your phone? This was just...
My phone just turned on.
Oh, wow.
No, it's spirit working through the technology. And so my phone just turned on. It was an album that I'd never heard. I'd never heard the song before. It wasn't in my Spotify and it just began playing. Now get this. So April rolls around and I'm pregnant. But then I did the math and I was like, when did I conceive? I conceived the last day of March. So that synchronicity, you know, you hear March, you find your signs, you feel super guided. That synchronicity is available to all of us, but it's when we have to get out of that pusher mentality and out of that controlling behavior to allow the presence of spirit to work through us and guide us, and or the universe or whatever you call it, to be the presence of direction, inspiration.
When the fear signal has kicked in, all right, it's releasing the neurochemicals, like I said, epinephrine, cortisol, norepinephrine, which is adrenaline. And some of it's good. Too much of it will cause you to fight, to freeze, to flee, run away, or to faint. Those are the 4, possible outcomes for the stress response or fear response system when it kicks in. So when that switch is turned on, think of it as a light switch that just turned on in your brain. And then there's a cascade, okay, of neurochemicals that causes a feeling. If you focus on the feeling, then you're going to think about what you feel, then you're going to feel what you think about, and you create this self-fulfilling doom loop of neurochemicals being rushed in your body. And if you do that every day, every week, every month, over and over again, you've now just set up a doom loop habit where that fear is going to drive your thoughts and emotions and behaviors or lack thereof. But what I want you to do is recognize the fear calmly. And you do this as soon as you recognize the fear that you can bring up on your own. You do the first inner size, okay? Inner size, exercise for your physical body and your organs, inner size for your neuromuscles, all right? So when you feel fear, be in observation of it like the light comes on in the dash of your car. And then what you do is you take 6 deep breaths, but here's how you do it. In through your nose, out through your mouth like you're blowing out of a straw. So it goes like this. 6 breaths, 10 seconds each. Ready? Deep rhythmic breath in, up to the lungs. Expand the diaphragm so you get the diaphragm and the lungs expanding. And you breathe out like you're breathing through a straw. So you focus the energy out through the mouth. It causes your brain to actually get oxygenated. And guess why you want that? Well, when we're in a state of fear, we activate, okay, the vagus nerve, which constricts your blood flow. It slows down your heartbeat. It causes shallow breathing. So as soon as you alternate from that fear and stress response system to the calm, from the stress and react system to the calm and respond system, your brain shuts off the fear circuit and activates the left prefrontal cortex. And when you can think, because blood flow goes back there again. So if fear is holding you back, there's nothing wrong with fear, but there just may be a lack of skill of knowing when or what to do. Does this make sense so far? Does this make sense so far? So when you take those 6 deep rhythmic breaths, that is what deactivates that stress response system in the brain and activates the relax and respond. You want to be in a responsive state as much as possible versus a reactive state.
I think one of my first things in failure is don't take it more personally than it actually is. And I'll give an example of that. When I was applying to 40 companies that all rejected me before an interview, all I was getting was an automated response saying your application will not go any further. I can't take that personally because they didn't meet me in person. They didn't have a interaction with me. They just saw my name. They saw I'd been a monk for 3 years. That resume is useless. I mean, what's your transferable skills? Like sitting in silence and stillness. Surprise, surprise, no one wants to hire a monk. And so they rejected you. But that's not personal because they didn't meet me in person.
But what if they had meeting you in person?
Right. So that's the first step. The first step is don't take all failure. I'll give you an example. Me and you, we reach out to countless guests to be on our podcast.
Who say no all the time.
But if I don't hear a no from the guest directly, that's not a no. Like someone's team can say no, someone's assistant can say no, someone's PR team can say no. But until they say no personally, it's not a no.
Okay, but when they do say no,
Then that's a no. Yeah. So then let's move
so
to
how
that.
do you deal
Yeah.
with that type of failure?
Yes. So if I deal with a failure where someone meets me in person and gets to know
Like,
me,
no, Jay, you're horrible. You suck. Like, I don't want to deal with a monk ever in my life.
Yeah.
I would never go on your show. I'm never listening to you. Never.
Yeah.
Then how do you deal with that type of
So
failure?
I've heard you say this. I've said it a couple of times, and I'm sure it's been repeated a bunch of times around how I genuinely believe failure has feedback. It's
feedback,
And
yeah.
and so for me, it's like failure has the ability to actually tell you what you need to improve. Now, not to improve to get their attention, improving to get the actions that you want to take.
Yeah, the results you want.
The results you want. And don't make that result about the person who said no. Don't try use failure as a way to prove someone else wrong.
Because what happens when we prove others wrong?
When you prove others wrong, you end up trying to get validation and approval for them. And now if they're not impressed when you're right, you lose again. So you end up losing twice.
And you spend all this time and energy, years maybe, to prove someone wrong. I've been there many times.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I felt good for a moment.
Yeah.
And then I feel empty again.
Totally. And so that's the thing about failure in the second half is you have to see failure as an improvement. If I'm completely honest, everyone who rejected me in my life up until now has made me more hungry, taught me so much more about myself, and made me up my game.
Yeah.
And I think if failure doesn't make you up your game, it's the same as losing in a sport, right? When you fail and you've lost games and you've won games, you know, on the big stages.
You didn't have the skills, you didn't have the teamwork, you guys weren't hungry enough,
You weren't
whatever it is.
communicating enough.
There's something you were missing.
Yeah.
So you go review the game film, you check the stats, you see what could I have done better, and you try to improve that for the next game.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can do that in life, but we're so afraid to like go on the next game of life. Like I got rejected once and it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
How do people learn to overcome that pain of rejection?
Yeah.
To keep going.
Yeah.
You know, in sports, luckily there's a season, which is like you might have 30 basketball games. After you lose the first two, you don't say, I'm just going to give up the rest of the season.
Yeah.
You keep playing.
Yes.
But in life, a lot of people stop playing.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I think that's great mental training too. I think
Yeah.
sports is great mental training because you have to show up to the next game even if you lost and you don't feel bad.
Exactly.
Like you don't feel good, sorry. And one of the things, before I dive into that question, one of the things that you reminded me of was the Last Dance documentary. So there's that season that Michael Jordan, everyone is in agreement that he is one of the best players to be playing. And they keep losing.
And they didn't make the finals.
Right? They didn't make the finals. They lost. And then they realized they need to get the team. And they need to find, I think they're bringing Dennis Rodman. And then they start bringing in all these other players that strengthen. Whereas if they would have just said, we got the best player in the world, we just keep doing this, I'm not sure they would have got there, right? But the coach, Phil Jackson, and the team, they had to adapt. And so you're saying, why do we feel that pain in rejection and how do we deal with that? I think we feel that pain because we look at a failure, right? We look at it as a complete definition of us, right? We're looking at it as there's that famous statement of like, failure is an event, not a person.
Right.
And I don't know who said it, but it's one of those statements that really clicks. Like failure is an event, not a person. Whereas we start thinking we are the failure. Like we say, I am a failure. Exactly.
I used to struggle a lot with manifesting, just the idea of it. I would watch videos on it and I didn't understand what they were saying. I just didn't understand it. Where there's manifesting a lot of attractions, like what are they saying? I don't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. And I would rewind it and watch again. It's like, I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand. And it seemed weird, silly, not good enough for me to just sit on a couch and think about money coming into your wallet or whatever it was that you're trying to manifest. You got to go do something. That in law of attraction, action is at the end of attraction. Like you got to go off and do the work. If that's been you, if you've been kind of struggling with manifesting or law of attraction, you don't know how it makes sense, you rewind videos and it feels too woo-woo for you, let me explain it from a different perspective and maybe it'll help. At least this is what's helped me. The first thing that I realized is very scientific, is from the reticular activating systems. It's part of your brain that decides what to pay attention to and what to not pay attention to. There are so many things that are happening right now all around you that you are not paying attention to. Most things your brain filters out. The job of the reticular activating system, you can go look it up, RAS, is to filter out most things and only filter in the things that you should care about. So for example, What color are your socks today? What color is your underwear today? Looking down this street and, I didn't know that there was a pine tree here. What are you paying attention to as you look out the window? You're looking at the tree, you're looking at the sign here, you're looking at the driveway, you're looking at the color of the sky, you're looking at the house, you look at what material that might be. You're not looking at anything because it's too blurry. You're still looking at my face, you're looking at my car, you're looking at the color of the headrest, you're looking at my outfit. Like, what are you paying attention to? Most things you're ignoring because there's no possible way to pay attention to everything. Pay attention to the dog. Justana. Hello. Good girl. Right? We're ignoring most things because it wouldn't serve you. It's just impossible. It'd be information overload. If you feel like you're overloaded already, just imagine if you took in absolutely everything. So your eyes are bringing it in and your brain is filtering out most of it. So what does your brain actually pay attention to? Well, the reticular activating system will choose to say, okay, you've set an intention, right? I want to pay attention to X. And now all of a sudden, you're going to see that more often. I just bought a house. So in that process, we started paying attention a lot more to houses. So one of the things I noticed was the for sale sign here, where I may have not noticed that as much in the past, but because I'm thinking house, boom, now I'm paying attention to the for sale sign. You ever notice when you buy a car, you start seeing that car everywhere, right? Or even thinking about buying a car, you're thinking about buying an X, you start seeing it on the street more often. Why? That's your reticular activating system. Basically saying, I want to pay attention to those things. So that car was still around, right? I mean, I got this car, we've got a Porsche, and now I see Porsches more often. Those Porsches still existed. They were already there. I just didn't notice them before, and now I notice them because I have one, right? So whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you're setting an intention toward, it's not just sit on your couch and meditate and imagine money coming into your wallet or a new car or a new house or business growth or you speaking on stage or whatever your goals are, right? It's not just sitting on it and visualizing it, but it's noticing it and the elements of it in your environment. That when you start thinking about it, right? We are what we consistently think about. When you start thinking about it, you'll start seeing opportunities around you that were already there. You just filtered it out because you didn't see how it connected. Now your brain's starting to make those connections. Does that make sense? Reticular activating system. You're ignoring most things, but when you set intention on the thing that matters to you, you'll start seeing it in your environment and opportunities for that to happen a lot more often. So that's step number one, reticular activating system. It's the science. Number two is to trust your intuition more. One of the things that really helped me back early on in my career was I judged myself too harshly for the ideas that I came up with. And as soon as I came up with an idea, I was like, oh, you can't do that. Or I had to have the perfect plan before I would ever take any kind of action on it. And, just later realized that you can never plan all the way out. There's no way, if you wait till you have the perfect plan, by the time you start actually executing, the plan is dead. It's over. And so you have to trust in your ideas. And so the thing that really helped me is I believe that great ideas flow through me. Believe that great ideas flow through you. This is how you shortcut your brain that's designed to keep you safe. That's how you shortcut the brain out of the equation. You came up with an idea. As long as you're in a positive state of mind, you're trying to serve, right? It's not, I want to go, you're in a jealous rage or you're angry. Don't trust your ideas then. But when you're positive and optimistic and bold and courageous and an idea comes to you, trust that that's the right idea for you. Just trust that it's the right idea and then go do something about it. Where normally what we do is we overthink and we overplan and we overprepare and then we lose the momentum and then the next day or the next week or the next month, it's gone, it's over. It's like, oh, I can't do that. No, that was actually a great idea for you. And it's happened enough to me where those things have worked out, where I come up with an idea and it doesn't make any sense logically, but I just decide to listen to it and do something on it. And it leads to something amazing. The amount of times that that's happened is pretty overwhelming. And so when you have enough repetition, for me, I had to see it. I had to see it enough times come up because I wouldn't just believe it on faith. I had to see it happen enough times. And you could test it yourself. What idea is in your head? What big idea that you want to do? Even a small idea. What's flowing through your head when you're in a positive state? Put on a happy song, move around a little bit, and then notice your thoughts and where it's going and what you want to create or who you want to reach out to, what you want to do. Like what thought comes to mind after you're moving around and having some positive energy. That's probably the right thing for you. And just test it out by doing something about it. And maybe that's a business idea. Maybe that's an email you need to send. Maybe that's a friend you need to reach out to. Maybe that's an act of kindness that you need to do. Whatever the thing is that pops into your mind, trust those ideas. And you could be a scientist. Like I like data and I like science and I like proving things. Maybe I'm a skeptic, I don't know. But in running those experiments, I proved to myself that, yeah, great ideas do flow through me. And so the next time I have a great idea, I'm going to go and take action on it. So number one, reticular activating system, it's already in your environment. You're just ignoring it. But if you put attention towards it, you start seeing it, like you notice a new car. When you buy your new car, you see that car everywhere. And then number two is trust that good ideas flow through you. Number three is the one that I'm working on, that I'm having the hardest time with, and I believe it, and I'm in the process of getting better at it, is when you're thinking about creating something, to talk to yourself in the present moment. And this is something that a lot of the manifestation, a lot of attraction people talk about, but also people like Grant Cardone talk about it. That it's not just the people who you'd associate with it, but other people who've had a lot of success, where you're talking about whatever thing is that you want, that it's already happened, that it's not going to happen in the future, but that it's already happened. If your goal is to speak on stage, then you're visualizing and you're telling yourself, I am on stage. I am speaking to 1 million people, or that's a giant stadium. I am speaking to 70,000 people. I am the author of a best-selling book. I am, like, whatever your goal is. And what I think the point of that is yes, one, to see yourself accomplishing big things. Two, to not have it be so far away that it lets you off the hook for taking action. But I think most importantly is for you to feel what it feels like to be that. And the more you feel like it feels like to be that, the more it actually becomes true. If your goal is to speak on stage in front of 5,000 people, and you actually feel like you're doing it, you can visualize yourself being on stage and doing it. The goal, I think, I'm still working through this, so 1 and 2 I've got down. 3 is my progress and my journey, so sharing with you. If you feel like you're doing it, if you are on stage and there's 5,000 people clapping for you and cheering you, you just gave the best speech, of your life so far, and you feel what it feels like to walk off that stage, and what a gift that you gave people, that the more comfortable you get with that feeling, the more it's going to be you, and the more that's going to show up. Does that make sense? So whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish, whoever it is that you're trying to be, whatever your big goals are, that you imagine yourself already having done it. And this is probably not something that I would tell other people, like, oh yeah, I'm a speaker in front of 70,000 people. Because I haven't spoken at a stadium that big. But to yourself, at least, to say it, to see it, to feel it, to do it. If you're trying to heal yourself, like, okay, I am healthy. But look, I've got a belly, or I've got a, whatever. Like, I am healthy. I am healthy. And visualizing yourself being healthy, because you want the feeling of what it feels like to be healthy. And the more you feel like you are healthy and you capture that feeling, the more frequently you're in there, the more likely it's going to show up. So that's probably not the most articulate way to share it, and I'm still working my way through it as well. So as I keep getting better and keep learning, I'll keep sharing with you. But I used to think like manifestation, law of attraction was way out there stuff that I judged and that I didn't understand and that didn't make any sense. Like, just go off and take action, guys. And with time and experience and exposure and practice, using the reticular activating system to notice things around me, by trusting that great ideas flow through me and following through and building momentum, and by talking to myself in the present moment as if I am that person that I want to become, so I can capture that feeling and know what it feels like to be that person. I've shifted and seen some pretty amazing results in my life and business, and I hope it can work for you too.
I think, everything starts with a thought. I mean, everything that you do in your life, you have to have a thought before you initiate an action, right? So if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, like any great leader in history understands that, the first thing you have to do is you have to decide, are you going to be defined by a vision of the future, or are you going to live by the memories of the past? So, I'll give you an example. Most people wake up in the morning and your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment, right? It's a memory bank. So most people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problems, and those problems are connected to certain people and things at certain times and places. And the moment they start turning on those circuits, those memories are actually causing them to think in the past. Every single one of those memories has an emotion associated with them, and emotions are the end product of past experiences. So then the moment they recall the event, or they recall some problem in their life, they start feeling unhappy, they start feeling discouraged, they start feeling anxious. Now, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So we could say then, most people's entire state of being when they start their day is in the familiar past. Well, if you live in the familiar past, then it makes sense you're going to create the predictable future. So what happens for most people is they get stuck in their biology. So think about this. Your body is your unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you can create by thought alone. So if you're living by the same emotion every single day, and those emotions are influencing your thoughts, and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, you're thinking in the past. Your lens of the future is going to be colored by the past, so you can't see possibilities. So most people like to wait for crisis or disease or diagnosis before they wake up enough to see. Well, the challenge is that biology tends to be redundant. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, and those thoughts begin to fire certain circuits in your brain, the nerve cells that fire together wire together, so all of a sudden you start getting hardwired, and those are the thoughts that you can think the easiest. At the same time, those thoughts produce chemicals called emotions, and the next thing you know, your body gets accustomed to living by the same emotions, and it could be guilt, it could be unhappiness, it could be pain, but at least it's familiar to you, at least you can predict it. So some people would rather cling to the familiar than take a chance in possibility. So for most people then, they say, well, I don't really see how my thoughts have anything to do with my destiny. Well, that's because 95% of those thoughts are subconscious programs, right? So you're not even conscious that you think those thoughts. So the first step to change is starting to think about what you've been thinking about and change it. And then when you begin to observe those thoughts, you're no longer the program, you're the consciousness observing the program.
Just simply by being an observer of your thoughts.
Right, so most people though, when you do that, when you decide to really take a look, it's like lighting a match in a dark place. So you feel uncomfortable. So it's easier to turn on your TV, it's easier to play with your cell phone, to distract yourself from those feelings. Well, when you understand that change really requires becoming uncomfortable to a certain degree, and that's normal, that you're leaving the known and you're stepping into the unknown, then it begs the question, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? Because your attention on those thoughts begins to reorganize circuitry, remold the brain.
I don't think people really realize we construct our lives. We build them from nothing. We decide what our goals are. We decide in what way to move. We decide who we're going to become and what we're going to get. But it's a decision, it's a process. It isn't something that somebody hands to you. And so if you find that your life is a misery, understand that your life is an exact reflection of your choices. And if you want a different life, you need only make a different choice. But I know right now, many of you are thinking, but I don't know what way to go. I don't know what choice to make. I don't know what it is that I want to do. And as Roy Maurice Keane said, I don't believe skill was or ever will be the result of coaches. It is a result of a love affair between the child and the ball. So ask yourself, what's that thing that you love? And don't judge yourself if it was something that you loved as a child that people are telling you couldn't possibly make money. And it's that part of the equation that I want to break for people. I want you to understand. Stop asking yourself what you can make a lot of money at, and start asking yourself, what would you enjoy? What is that life that you don't need to escape from? What is the life that is your love? What is the thing that as a kid you did, whether people wanted you to or not? What is the thing you would sneak out at night to do because you weren't going to be stopped from doing it? Everybody has something like that in their life. Some spark of interest, maybe long dormant, maybe that they've pushed aside because they think it's stupid. Or maybe they failed once and they think they're bad at it. And even though they love it, that sting of the failure has convinced them to stop pursuing it. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what gives you that energy. At the end of the day, the thing that matters is what fills you with joy. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters, it's not success. And it sure as hell isn't money. It's how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. It's the things that give you energy. It's what you think about yourself. It's how you react to the hard things. It's whether or not you push through. And when you push through, when you persevere, when you go down the process of taking the time to structure your life, to build it into something that you want it to be, to build it into something that you're proud of, to become the person that's capable of the things that you want to do, that can first fall in love with something and do it for the love of it and not worry about what other people think. If you hate your life, I guarantee you the thing is that you are trapped by what other people think. You don't want to give it up because somebody will think you're a failure. You don't want to give it up because it's a paycheck. You don't want to give it up because you're scared. You're scared you don't know what you'll do next. But imagine a world for a second where all you thought about was, what do you love? What do you enjoy in that moment? It doesn't matter if it changes from day to day. Just what do you love? What fills you with joy? What gives you that energy? At the end of the day, the only thing that we all have is right now, this moment. It's what you're experiencing. Loving what you do, how you spend your time. That's the point of all of it. The point of life is that. In each transient moment that passes by, doing something that fills you with joy. Nobody can give you that. You've got to build that life. So go out. Figure out what it is that you want to do, and brick by brick, have the courage to build that life.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. To learn the 10 skills that are hard to learn but will pay off forever, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there. So to help you on your journey today, I'm doing a video on the 10 skills that are hard to learn but will pay off forever. And as always, guys, as you're watching, if you hear something that really resonates with you,